Hi, shalom friends. I'm assuming that you are an educated person. As a matter of fact, many of you have some very impressive credentials, whether it be a master's or a bachelor's or a PhD, and certainly a high school diploma, and so on and so forth. And it's very deeply meaningful to you. In fact, one of the big insults that you would not tolerate is when someone would say, you're completely uneducated. You're ignorant. Okay. I'm going to dedicate another YouTube about education. But for now, if I were to ask you, okay, with your education, what are you educated in? So first of all, you know how to read, you know how to write, you know how to do basic math, you have an understanding of the world around you, there's world affairs, there's earth sciences, and so on and so forth. I said, that's fantastic. Okay, you're an educated person, you spent maybe 12 or 15 years of your life being educated, and how much of that education are you actually using on a daily practice? You say, that's a silly question. There's so many facets that make me into who I am. And essentially, without my education, I could not have gotten the job that I have. Okay, so I'd like to focus for a moment. And that is that there's education for the sake of getting a good livelihood or providing for life. Indeed, many companies will only interview a person that has at the very minimum a high school diploma. Most people want a college degree. Though, to my understanding, I've never understood the relationship between a 4-year general degree from college, what that has to do with coding or with anything, actually. But in any case, okay, so you're educated and you have now the skills to provide for yourself or for your family. Beautiful, you have a job. Now I ask you to go back, and whether you're working in IT or whether you're blue collar or whether you're working in maintenance, it makes no difference to me. Wherever you're working, go back and say to yourself, how much of the education that I acquired over the 15, 16 years of being educated, how much am I applying it to the job that I have today? Again, if you're working in IT, does the biology classes or the chemistry classes that you took, are they very relevant? And if you are a physical fitness, does it really make a difference whether you understood fractions or calculus? Today, we have very highly educated people who go to professionals to do their taxes. Today, we also have people very highly educated who can't balance a checkbook. And therefore, there are systems to work on that as well. So it's really very hard to pinpoint the education, the value of the education that we received to justify the energy, the expense, and the amount of time for the results. So you have skills to make a living, but is there a school that will give you the skill to live? For example, let's say I were to tell you that there's a very special school that in the 8 years of education, you will come out with attitudes and perspectives that will make you mentally more capable to receive unhappy news as happy news. In general, it will encourage optimism. In general, it will encourage happiness. In general, it will give a sense of ambition, but not to the overriding ambition to the extent where someone else does not apply. In other words, skills to live. Parenthetically, there was a very famous author who wrote a book, Everything I Ever Had to Know, I Learned in Kindergarten. And I believe one of the, either in the introduction or one of the gist that he says is, essentially, when he was in the early ages in school, they taught him skills how to live. They taught him how to share. They taught him to respect someone else's property. They taught him to raise the hand and to acknowledge the teacher's authority. They always insisted that they clean up after art. They even checked at times in the restroom to make sure they knew what they were doing, and so on. That's skills for life. Everything else he said was extra. What would you say to a person who pays for the finest education for their child, but never taught them how to cross the street? Never taught the child that there's a red light and a green light and a yellow light and one should look on both sides? I would say that that is criminal or negligence. It makes no difference that the kid could speak 3 different languages. If you did not teach your child that before he crosses the street, you have to look on both sides and look at, then what kind of a parent are you? What would you say, again, to a kid? You ask the parents, what do you have? You have a child, he's a wild Indian, he's nasty to people, he steals, though he always has an excuse. He's a troublemaker. He never accepts responsibility. And the mother and father, they just shake their head. He's a good kid. He's getting A's in school. He's doing his homework. It's like a different world. He's a good kid because he's getting good marks. But he's not a good kid in the sense of skills for living. This is a dangerous child who's going to grow up to be profoundly unhappy, and chances are will be making others unhappy as well. So where am I going with this idea? Very simply, no one today teaches math the way it was written in the 1950s. History is constantly being rewritten. All of the facts and figures may or might not be changed, but the interpretation is constantly changing. To teach social studies from a 1980 book? No. Even to teach beginning reading, which I grew up with, see, spot, run, they don't do that anymore. I mean, the books are completely different. The pictures are completely different. There is no family structure. Everything is different. So now, if I asked you, you're a good parent, and you want to give skills for living, what book should you use and what school should you send them to? P.S. Postscript. Of all of the scandals that have come out, especially about the sexual issues, one thing is abundantly clear, that a good education, a fine education, is no protection against acting like an animal. You say, well, they have so many skills and they are so educated, but they've never been taught how to live. So if I wanted to have a book that teaches me how to live, not how to make a living, not how I can make more money, but how can I live as a human being? How can I be a good neighbor? How can I be a good employee? How can I be a good father, a good mother, a good spouse, a good child? What book would I use? The 50s, the 60s, the year 20,000, 2008? You know what? I'm going to use a book that's really not outdated, but very old. It's called the Bible, 3,300 years old. And I'm going to read the book of Genesis. And I'm going to read about stories of how God created the world and how he created man and how man acted, how God reacted, how families grew closer together, how families went out together. And from each one of these wonderful, insightful, holy, true stories, I will be able to learn how to live a life of decency, a life of goodness, and a life of meaning. So let's go back again. Are you educated? Ask yourself that hard question. Educated in what? I'm educated in mathematics. Can you fix your car? I'm educated in biology. Okay, are you a tailor? I'm educated in world politics. Can you change the world? Can you change climate control? What are you educated in? Well, we Jewish people, we are educated in being mentioned. We have the book of all books. There's no revision. There's no second edition. There's no, we made a mistake, but through scientific discovery, we realized that we were wrong and now we are right. No. This is a divine blueprint. So ask, if you challenge yourself, are you educated? Ask yourselves, do I have the skills to live? And if the answer, and only you can answer that question, is, I have a lot to learn. I did a little bit of Hebrew school, but I don't remember. Or I never had a Hebrew school. Then maybe now it's time to start. Maybe now it's time to go to a synagogue. Maybe now it's time to get to know a Torah teacher. Maybe now we should use the internet, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of sites which present beautiful, authentic Torah thoughts. These are skills, but not to make a living, because that's no assurance of happiness. It is skills for life itself. Or if you don't want to study Torah, I suggest let's go back to kindergarten and relearn the skills that so many of us seem to have forgotten. Shalom.